Welcome to another episode of Sheep in the Mids. Everything is on sale. Bitcoin prices, cryptocurrencies are all going to zero, and perhaps there are opportunities to look at. The Crypto Fear and Greed Index from CoinGlass.com is showing its lowest value since 2021. And this is something worth looking at as the prior lower Fear and Greed Index from around May to July has proved to be a phase of good accumulation or consolidation before the next move higher. Does it mean it should do the same this time around? Perhaps it will. But that we should also see how traditional markets and narratives and themes and sentiment are moving at the same time. So this is something that we should look at. If we compare this now, since 2018, the Fear and Greed Index, as it goes closer to zero, does not necessarily mean everything will just go higher the next thing around. Actually, no, that's not the case at all. It's more of perhaps there's a more of a reactionary tendency at that price, whether it's going to consolidate, form a base, or perhaps there's a small bounce to provide a relief into it before consolidating and making a move lower. We should be looking at opportunities that may arise at these levels. Everyone is basically quite fearful already at these levels, and we have to think the opposite. We have to think opposite of what everyone else is thinking. And that's what we are going to try to do today. There are many indicators out there that can tell you whether Bitcoin is overbought or Bitcoin is oversold. Sometimes it just confuses you as well. But today I want to share with you three basic indicators that can really help you gauge Bitcoin's valuation, whether it's way too high or just at the right level, and perhaps it can really help you make your own decisions based on these indicators. The three indicators that I'm sharing with you come from look into Bitcoin that can easily be seen for free. The first one is the MVRV Z-Score. The second is the Puell Multiple. And the third one is the net unrealized profit loss. So the MVRV Z-Score is a Bitcoin chart that uses blockchain analysis to identify periods where Bitcoin is extremely overvalued or undervalued relative to its fair value. It uses three metrics: the market value, the current price of Bitcoin, multiplied by the number of coins in circulation. So this is like the market cap. Yeah. Essentially, this is the market capitalization of Bitcoin at the current time. Second metric is the realized value. So this takes the price of Bitcoin when it was last moved, like sending Bitcoin from one wallet to another wallet, and then it adds up all of those individual prices and takes an average of them. It then multiplies that average by the total number of coins in circulation. Finally, the Z-score. So it is the standard deviation test that pulls out the extremes in the data between market value and realized value. So now the MVRV Z-Score calculation tells us today that the current mark for this is at an area of opportunity where in prior instances where it is has reached the green zone level, a positive reaction to the price have occurred in the next few weeks or months ahead. Does it mean that the price has bottomed? Absolutely not. It just tells us it is a good valuation area right now, that it is not overvalued. The Z-score or the MVRV Z-score to me tells me what is going to be my risk reward when I try to sell or buy Bitcoin. And you can see for yourself that on the green zone level of the Z score will have more reward than risk. However, it does not mean that the price will just go up. There are always going to be factors that would affect Bitcoin because Bitcoin is bought and sold by people, and people have needs, they have emotions, they buy and sell for different purposes, and those are the more important things. But this indicator tells us, or at least it tells me, the risk and reward opportunities. And when the Z score is at the levels on the red zone, so you can see here, based from this indicator, that this at that level, your reward for selling Bitcoin perhaps is of a lesser risk if we were going to do that. So, so that's what this indicator tells me is more of the not whether it's time to buy or sell, but it's more of your preference when you want to buy or sell based on the risk and reward opportunities. But it itself is just supplementary. The next indicator that I am looking at, or the chart, is the Puell Multiple. This metric looks at the supply side of Bitcoin's economy, Bitcoin miners, and their revenue. So this indicator, the Puell Multiple, explores the market cycles from a mining revenue perspective. Right. So there are periods of time where the value of Bitcoins being mined and entered into the ecosystem is too great or too little relative to historical norms. The lower value of a Bitcoin's issuance, the greater the return for Bitcoin investors who would buy Bitcoin at that level. And the opposite is true, where periods of daily issuance of Bitcoin have been extremely of high price, then it would be more advantageous for investors to sell there. So that's what this chart is basically trying to show. So the Puell multiple calculation is calculated by the daily issuance of Bitcoins in US dollar divided by the 365-day moving average of daily issuance value. So here in the Puell multiple chart, when the Puell 365 multiple indicator value is below 50 or below 0.5, it has a good risk reward ratio opportunities for investors who are buying Bitcoin. And when its value rises to above 3, then these are good areas where one can sell Bitcoin. So this chart or indicator does not mean the price will just go up or go down based on the Puell multiple value of, of where it currently lies. So you can see here, let's say back in 2015, the Puell multiple indicator hovered below zero point 0.5, which according to it has provided a good opportunity to buy, yet the price remained flat for several weeks after that. Last but not the least is the indicator for relative unrealized profit and loss. So how does this calculation, so the net unrealized profit and loss is the calculation of market capitalization minus the realized capitalization of Bitcoin divided by the market capitalization of Bitcoin. That gives us the value of net unrealized profit and loss. So here we are trying to estimate the total paper profits or losses in Bitcoin held by investors. So this is interesting to know. So this is quite interesting to know the sentiment of investors over a certain period of time. The key here is to understand the key guidance on this indicator is to see the difference between so this indicator or chart helps us to see basically the sentiment of investors with Bitcoin. And currently now we are at levels of areas where in the past cases would be good risk reward areas to plan and make your decisions if you want to buy. And now on this chart now, of the net unrealized profit and loss. Currently, we are at the levels of a period of zone where in the past it's been a good historical area where accumulation or reaction to the positive side can occur in the next few weeks or months. It does not mean, however, that one should just buy outright at these levels. It just tells you that the opportunity is coming for us to plan and take actions to take advantage of the market fear. And likewise, at the same time, it tells us whether the price itself or the sentiment of investors are in euphoric or at greedy phases. And this really helps us to really minimize our risk when things are euphoric and to take advantage of opportunities when things are pretty much down. So these are the three indicators that have really helped me to pinpoint whether the Bitcoin, at least for the Bitcoin price, is at a good level, good valuation, or at euphoric or greed levels. So these three, you can view them easily from lookintobitcoin.com. Just hover into charts. They offer in several other charts or indicators, but these three are essentially the ones that I'm looking at. The MVRV Z-Score, the net unrealized profit and loss, and the Puell Multiple right over here on the mining section. So onto the headlines to gauge the sentiment of cryptocurrencies and traditional markets. Here at Cointelegraph, Decrypt, and Coindesk are all saying the same thing, that the market is tumbling over the weekend. And over at Bloomberg, see, they even have headline, top of the headline for the crypto market. But one thing I really find interesting that we will tackle later on are two things: oil, and here it is over at Bloomberg. You can see it. China's stock rally is becoming a lifeline for Asian portfolios. So over to the technical analysis for various assets that I'm looking at in preparation for the upcoming week. For Bitcoin itself, you can see for the past few hours, the price has been going down over the weekend after the market's closure on Friday. However, it is at still at the levels where I want to see a reaction perhaps on Tuesday. And I can also see here that the price has already been at oversold levels for the past few days. So I'm looking at the daily time frame, and this is my overbought and oversold guidance. Here you can see the price is now gyrating for a strong move, whether it's to go extremely oversold or to test this area at least, or to break out of this long time frame of making lower highs of overbought conditions and making lower lows of oversold conditions, and this will come to a conclusion in the next few days by either capitulating on the downside or moving up and continuing the sideways contraction of overbought oversold, or really breaking out and creating a new paradigm or a new chapter for Bitcoin. On the lower time frame, if I go at the hourly, the one thing that I am only looking at right now is a formation of a falling wedge pattern, which I'm not a fan of, since these patterns makes everyone look at it that it is a falling wedge pattern, then likely it would just gyrate and go further down. So that's what I am looking at. So I'm using this falling wedge pattern as a pattern that I want or assume that other traders are looking at. And the way how this market works is to create this illusion of a falling wedge, trying to make you see that it is breaking out, then just to go further down and resume its downtrend. And the level that I am looking at is basically at 20,500 area, where the dump occurred over the weekend, whether it can resume it higher or does it cap any bounces at that level for it to go further down. But over into the coming week, I'm mainly more interested whether we can still see the price being able to go much higher, at least retest the prior week high around 28,000 at least, or whether do we close the month strong at 32,000. So those are the two areas. It seems far-fetched right now, but those are the two areas that I am looking at, to the upside and to the downside. And to the downside, I am still looking at the same levels last time, around 17,000 and 19,000. So those are the areas that I am looking at, whether we find a reaction there. Yes, the price is now below 19,000. The next area I'm looking at is around 17,000. But on the first video, I did mention that a good value for this perhaps would be around 9,000 to 12,000, where there is more volume at that level. The one thing that I am also looking at is oil. The West Texas oil. So you can see that the price has broken down from the channel, from the rising channel, and I would like to see it reflect on the incoming week, whether it tests this level of around 100 and perhaps try and see what's down below $95 and see whether these support will provide a good reaction to the upside, or it will liquidate the traders who have stops here and just go down and perhaps form another range at these levels. That would be a very, very good news for inflation, as oil is my representation of high inflation or low inflation. And as oil price is going down, below 100 would be the key for me that inflation may peak already, and that would be good for all risk assets such as the stock market and Bitcoin itself. So that would be good. So that's something that I am looking at for this coming week. And if we look at the US dollar dominance, I'm using the USDT, it has continued to go higher. So this area where I believe a terminal move can happen has exceeded it and continued to rise to form perhaps a new range here. But price remains at overbought levels. And before buying any cryptocurrency, I would like to see how it forms to go back into this rising wedge channel that I created and see whether the price will come back to it. And when it does come back to this area, then that will be more of a bearish tone for the dollar, and that bearish tone for the dollar, and that will bode well as well on equities and Bitcoin itself. But let us see. So this is the essentially the trap set, the one that I mentioned earlier, that I don't like falling wedges and rising wedges because these are patterns that are created to lure in people who would, in this case, short the rising wedge, and then it just created another area of a higher high created at this level. But drawing these wedges are helpful still to determine whether you ask yourself whether these have good merits, or will this just trap traders who are following this pattern. And for me, last week I did say that we should watch out, see how the reaction here will go, whether it's gonna go higher or go lower and break this level and go lower. So this did not materialize, so we went higher. And this week, one thing that I'm looking at is oil, and oil itself for me will bode well if it pulls back. And I can look at it by using oil itself against BTC. So this chart has not been updated since oil price is not since the oil price market is not open. So the price is definitely will go higher from here at the open. Now I'm wondering here whether it tops out, as the market is quite overbought already, but still can go up. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at. But a falling crude oil, but a falling oil price will definitely help sentiment for, or at least a good risk reward for a brief rally in Bitcoin, or perhaps even. But that's what I'm looking at. The oil itself will be key for the week, whether it will continue to go down. The key is $100, and with it going down, I would expect oil itself to perform poorly, perhaps, against Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can perhaps do a relief bounce. But that's something I am curious to look at for the coming week. And for the traditional markets, for S&P 500, this is one thing that I have drawn, another falling wedge. Yeah. And this is what I am trying to see what we can make out of this, whether it will continue to create now a new zone for the S&P 500 to go lower to my next target around 3,400, or it will fake out everyone at this level that make people think that the falling wedge is invalid, it's going to crash down only to return higher. The key will always going to be the weekly open of the prior week. So that's around 3,900, and the key to closing the June is at 4150. If the S&P 500 closes the month of June at 4150 or even at 4140, give and take, then everything will just go up. That's the key. But as long as this holds, prices doesn't break above that, then downtrend remains in the S&P 500. But one thing to look at is the Hong Kong market, and this is for me is a very, you can see, it's a very curious thing to know what's happening in China. So here in Bloomberg, you can see that China's stock rally is becoming a lifeline for Asian portfolios, and I'm using the Hong Kong stock market here as my representation. And you can see here, yeah. Last week I did mention on the first video that price has already reached equal legs. We had the price reaction from there, and now it's now wait and see whether the price will resume an upward trend. This to me looks a terminal move higher, and the pullback completed. Now it's forming a base, sideways base. So if this is a good terminal move higher, then price expects to consolidate and resume higher. So that's what I am looking at, and this really is going to be helpful for all markets. And finally, before we forget, what are the market calendar for the upcoming week? We'll have on Monday the RBA meeting minutes, inflation data on June 22 will be very important. We will also have Jay Powell's testimony on Wednesday that will continue on until Thursday as well. The Japanese inflation rate. So this will be a very, very pivotal week in terms of inflation. Data for British, for Canada, for Japan, as well as testimony from Jay Powell. Again, a lower price on oil followed by peaking inflation rate data this week will just be a coincidence, right? So that's something I am looking at, and also goes very well with the narrative. Hence, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be pivotal for the month of June for crypto markets, Bitcoin, and traditional markets as well. So that's my take for this. So in summary, market events, we have inflation data for BOE, for UK, Canada, Japan. Headlines, everything's burning down. However, oil is key to risk on assets. assets rallying. So we're looking at 100 USD is key for peak inflation. Sentiment, fear, everyone's fear flatline already. However, remember the three charts or indicators from Look into Bitcoin that they have compiled for you to see for free are going to be helpful guidance and to keep more objective looking at this perspective, whether Bitcoin is at a good valuation or is it a high valuation already, or is it, and then from there you can make your own decisions whether on what you want to do based on these guidance on these charts. You can also continue to do further research, digest what's coming in the next few days and weeks. And basically, this is what I am looking at really at the end for our market notes is capitulation. That's what I want to see, and to see a terminal move, a move that prices is going to go down so fast and recover so fast. That's a terminal move for me, and that's where you get to evaluate then whether a bottom is in or not. Once again, thank you very much for watching this video, and I really hope you learned a few things from this and to help you as well on the things to come for this coming week. And yeah, I do appreciate for you to reaching this far. So do like and subscribe to this channel, and to keep you updated for all other succeeding videos. Thank you and take care.